Arsenal were moments away from what possibly could have been one of the biggest wins of Mikel Arteta's career.
Yeah, it could have been a really big, huge, poignant, deciding moment potentially in the Premier League. When you get to the end of April, May, and you start looking at that table and the points difference, and if there's a couple of points in it, Arsenal could look back and think if we'd held on for another 60 seconds, that could have earned us the Premier League title. So it'd be fascinating to see how this season plays out in that competition between the two. And when you look at Arsenal so far this season, they've actually been really effective away from home. We know their record in 2024. They've played City, Spurs and Aston Villa away and picked up 7 points out of a possible 9. So on their travels against the big hitters, they've actually done really well. But we know the data and the metrics from that second half yesterday isn't particularly strong because they had a game plan, low block, defend for our lives, let's see what we can do. Let's take a look at the two halves with regards to the average positions for Arsenal. This is the first half. You can see Bukayo Saka, the highest player up the pitch there. That's normally the area that he operates in. And you can see it's a reasonably high defensive line for Arsenal. They're not at the halfway line. They're not too deep, but you can see quite congested in the middle of the park. But then the contrast. This is the second half, and you can see defensively they're virtually in their own box, and there's very little up front. No outlets. It was all about their defensive responsibility and duty. You can see one interesting player, Jurrien Timber. He's quite high for a right back. But yeah, you can see the difference between the first half and the second half. We know that Arsenal in the game, 22% possession, which is the second lowest for them in the Premier League. The lowest came, funnily enough, against Manchester City in 2021, where they had 20%. They had just 12.5% possession in that second half.
Just in the second half, will Manchester City be concerned about the inability to break Arsenal down?
I think there'll be a concern and a frustration. On another day, potentially, Manchester City could have scored 3 or 4 goals in that second half, and against another side they probably would have done. But Gary Neville said it in commentary during that second half. This is the best Arsenal defence we've seen for years. This is the best centre-back partnership, arguably, in the Premier League at the moment. So to try and break them down would have been tough. And you can see the momentum swings between the two sides in the second half. Now, as you can see, Bella, there's no momentum for Arsenal at all
is this graphic
in the second half. They've not really had one meaningful attack, one opportunity, one moment to just breathe and get out. It's all about Manchester City dominating all the big moments in the second half, having the ball, being creative. We know about their possession. We know about the opportunities they created. 28 shots in that second half. But just the one goal that came here. This big moment right at the end of that second half. So it gives you an indication as to just how tough it was. When we break that down, 705 passes for Manchester City compared to 208 for Arsenal. 399 City passes completed in the final third compared to just 25 for Arsenal. And the most passes. Now, this is another problem, I think. And Arsenal will say, if you've got Ruben Dias, Kyle Walker and Manuel Akanji having the most passes, the defence, we're comfortable with that. We don't mind those players having the ball because it means they're having it pretty much on the halfway line. If you've got the attacking players that are having all the ball, then Arsenal have got a real problem. But you can see Ruben Dias, 124 passes, ranking first. Kyle Walker, 105, and Manuel Akanji down there for third. So, yeah, more interesting stats from that game.
Yeah, great stats. Thank you, Mark.